Stragobor himself. What? Greyball gives a sly smile as he lights his pipe. I hope this pipe are not... The excited glint in his eyes betrays his impatience to share some news with you. Finally, he can contain himself no longer. Interesting news has reached my ears, Morgraine. There has been talk among the more disreputable citizens of Adoshinir that someone is hiring the most vicious thugs and cutthroats to kill a certain Willidus. A familiar name, isn't it? I strongly suspect that this is the same Willidus who set me up during the assassination of Derazand. I'd call that a fortuitous coincidence. Remind me, what do you have against Willidus? I can't wait to have a few words with that fellow. He contracted me to kill the Baelor Derazand and insisted that I use the magical dagger he gave me, which turned out to be, well, defective. My target escaped, and even though I'd only postponed his death for a few days, it sullied my reputation. This means, of course, that Willidus will have to pay. I'm not sure how I will collect the payment in gold or his life. How did you obtain this information? Greyball sounds offended. I am an assassin. If I didn't know how to obtain rumors, I'd be out of work. I visited a few taverns, including a place called Bad Luck. It's a real cesspool, and information flows into it all over the city. I was approached by someone who was looking for thugs to hire. He was the one who told me everything. I would have found out more if I had talked to him longer, but after he called me a bloody larvae, he needed the dentist, and I needed a new mug of beer. Who is this Willidus? Greyball takes a slow, thoughtful draw from his pipe, and then answers in a business-like manner. Here's what I know about our prey. He's a demon and a wizard powerful enough to enjoy high status in this city. Lately he has surrounded himself with a small army of mercenaries, but they are mere thugs who lack the skills of professional bodyguards. Ever since Willidus found out about the bounty on his head, he hasn't left his mansion. I suspect it's full of traps. I wouldn't underestimate the danger of facing Willidus. They were looking for real daredevils to bring him down, which means this whole business is almost certainly risky, maybe even suicidal. Who wants Willidus dead? The dwarf shrugs. An anonymous entity, who apparently has more brains than Willidus and is smart enough to keep his name a secret from his employees. I bet it is one of the Descarites. Derazand was one of Descari's lackeys, after all, and even though internal strife never ends within that snake pit, they always team up against external threats. And what do you suggest? I'll be damned if I let a bunch of incompetent thugs get to him before me. No. First, I must have a little chat with Willidus, and then they can do whatever they want with him. How about we leave those hapless goons in the dust and visit Willidus' mansion first? That sounds like an exciting challenge, doesn't it? Do you want to kill Willidus? Not necessarily. Perhaps I'd rather have the full weight of compensation in gold, and yet the longer my vengeance is delayed, the stronger my desire grows to collect the debt in another way. How do we find Willidus? His mansion is in the upper city. It's called the House of Wicked Knowledge. I'm not sure how wicked his knowledge is exactly, but he is truly wicked when it comes to business agreements. Alright, let's pay this Willidus a visit. Excellent. I think that conversation will involve some good old-fashioned violence. A matter of reputation. Vices are the forces that set intelligent society in motion. Greed. We should have read more of these texts, they're very good. And apparently they give a lot of information. Greed, indolence, lust, and anger are the horses that pull the cart of progress onward, and the passions that inspire minds to achieve their goals, yet they all pale in comparison to the most powerful of such forces. Vengeance. The assassin Greyball has discovered, Stragobor, that the individual responsible for damaging his reputation has been close this whole time. Is there any obstacle formidable enough to keep him and his comrades away from the path of vengeance? Anything that would prevent him from restoring his so-called good name? Whatever the answers to these questions, bloodshed seems inevitable. Thanos approves. Visit Willidus's mansion with Greyball. Rumors are currency, and anyone who wishes to become rich must handle them as deftly as gold coins. The assassin Stregobor is an old hand at the rumor mill. He has obtained information that a certain individual is gathering a gang of cutthroats in order to send them after the demon Willidus. The dwarf has his own score to settle with that villainous demon, and he is particularly keen on having a little chat with Willidus before the assassins get to him. The demon's mansion is in the upper city. It is called the House of Wicked Knowledge. Perfect. And let's get to the House of Wicked Knowledge. And I guess we have to take Stregobor with us. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. We don't need any rations or camp supplies to rest. We can just rest everywhere. I'm not sure if I like that. It's a bit odd, since a lot of D&D games make most stuff tedious. Like, you can only rest 2 times outside of cities with a specific item needed to rest again, which you have to buy again, and it limits at 2. Something like that. Incest, degeneracy. Rapture, no. Demalchius Enchanted Mansion, Middle City, 10,000 Delight. Okay. When to Okay, but where is it? Well, that's a bit odd. Maybe it's that mansion? What's happening? Okay. That's not disturbing at all. That's the mansion that I mean, this area we haven't yet dived into. But where can we find it? Now, before we waste our time, I'm just going to take my phone and we'll be like, Willidus's mansion. Pathfinder, Willidus's mansion. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Upper city. Okay. Now that you're here, go to the north towards the portal shown in the picture above. There is no picture above. Are you serious? It will take you to a place that has 2 bridges. 2 bridges? Well, that's one. What the heck? It's odd. Where am I supposed to go here? Portal down. Now that you go here, okay. There's no picture. Apparently it's gone already. Go to the north, towards the portal shown in the picture above. It will they mean this place with 2 bridges. Okay. Take the one on the left. Well, if we look at this from... Okay, so I guess that's the left bridge. On the other side of the bridge, walk straight until you reach a place. Okay, that's it. Ancestor degeneracy. That's not very helpful. Okay. This again. That doesn't help us very much. Yeah, portal up. Maybe it's this place here. Oh yes, it is. Okay. lock is familiar. These locks are used by monster traders from Katapesh who want to ensure their most powerful beasts stay in their cages. It can't be forced, but one delicate twist of a knife and done. Impressive. Hello? Is it open? Strike a wall? Hello? Please open the door. Day 12, month Callistril, year 4716. A hunt is a clash between the hunter's cunning and the shrewdness of the prey. When the prey expects a trap, the hunter's acumen is put to the test in trying to subvert such expectations. Willardus has proven he understands this fundamental principle. The commander bursts through the front door and freezes. For all the tales about the mansion supposedly becoming a citadel, no one is there to assault the unwanted guests. There are no flying arrows, no chilling battle cries, and the expansive furniture hasn't been turned into makeshift barricades. The commander and his companion carefully examine the luxurious antechamber. There are two doors leading deeper into the mansion. One bears a symbol of a mirror and the other a symbol of a knife. There is a bloody pigeon feather in front of the doors and a note that contains two words: "Welcome, assassin." Welcome to Hogwarts. Lord, the commander recalls that the bloody feather is the symbol of Shax, the Blood Marquis. Its demon lord is infamous for luring his victims into labyrinths full of deadly traps. The door slams shut loudly behind him. Commander enters the door with a mirror symbol. Stepping through the doorway, the commander suddenly feels nauseous, and an icy chill runs across his skin. His intuition screams that he has just passed through an interplanar portal, and he instantly loses all sense of direction and balance. It seems the rooms of this mansion occupy different layers of reality, and these portals unite them into an elaborate labyrinth, where a single wrong turn is enough to lose one's way entirely for the rest of eternity. Greed and arrogance are traits inherent to almost all demons, and the lord of the mansion seems eager to prove himself without equal in the indulgence of both these vices. The door leads into a magnificent sitting room. It hasn't been furnished in a manner indicative of tasteful refinement. The lamp reflections sparkle on the gilded furniture. The floor is covered in elaborate mosaics. The shelves are full of expansive trinkets. As if all this luxury wasn't enough, the whole room is reflected back again in the giant mirror that covers the entire ceiling. As soon as the commander enters, the mirror surface ripples, starting to bubble, bulge and ooze like molasses. It sends its sticky tendrils toward the outsiders, and a single touch from these appendages pierces the flesh with a sepulchral chill. Tries to defend himself using evil now. Attempts to break the mirror with a powerful blow. With a furious cry, Morgraine strikes the mirror with all his might, and the surface shatters with a deafening clang. The shards fall down in a glittering waterfall, smashing into tiny little fragments on impact. By right, the trophies from a battlefield belong to the victor. The commander invokes that right and fills his purse with a considerable number of gold trinkets that any merchant would gladly barter for more useful items. There are 3 doors that lead out from the room occupied by the strange carnivorous mirror. The commander decides to open the one bearing the symbol of gold chain, diamonds, earring, horn, medallion, ruby ring. Ooh, gilded or not golden. Okay. We're going to open the door with scales. No matter how wait, why is this all in? Okay. How gleefully the lord of this palace mutilates flesh. He's first and foremost a scientist. And a scientist, by definition, is a madman who can put to shame any giggling maniac with a knife. Therefore it comes as no surprise that his laboratory is furnished with care and order, and there is no hint of the tawdry luxury found in the other rooms. There is a multitude of flasks and vials, with potions resting on the tables, and the cupboards are full of jars containing brains of all shapes and colours. As soon as the door closes behind the commander's back, a huge silvery autoclave opens with a wheezing clang, emitting a wave of foul-smelling brine. A hideous homunculus, covered in glistening slime, crawls out of the autoclave. Its liquid, malleable body constantly grows new limbs, eyes and mouth, absorbing the bits and pieces it no longer requires. It seems the monster can't decide what shape it should take. It stares the commander with malevolent intelligence. It seems it has better mental faculties than most alchemically produced creatures. The homunculus giggles repulsively as it grabs a vial full of acid and aims it at the commander's head. It starts throwing flasks of potions at the homunculus, while trying not to touch any really dangerous substances. The barrage of flasks, vessels, and other laboratory wares forces the homunculus to retreat behind the bulk of the autoclave and defend itself from there. Mograine grabs the ground, a corked vial with frost on the inside. Taking very careful aim, he launches the projectile right at the monster's hiding place. A pale blue flash lights up the laboratory, Q interferes, and the homunculus is instantly frozen to the autoclave, covered in a thick layer of ice. It's definitely Q's work. You might remember the first scene when he appeared. Did that member of the Enterprise die back then? I mean, it was completely frozen. It desperately grows 2 extra mouths for its final deathly scream. The commander uses this chance to search the laboratory, and manages to procure an entire satchel of useful potions and balms. Stepping over the wreckage of expensive lab equipment and shattered glass, the commander pauses before the 3 doors and eventually chooses the one with the symbol of a blazing fire. The commander finds himself in a long stone passage. No traps are triggered by his careful steps, yet at the end of the passage his vision grows blurry. The illusion of safety falls apart like a house of cards, revealing an endless fiery field, ashen mountains, rivers of lava, and magmatic volcanoes. Hot wind scorches his face. It is not difficult to conclude that this deadly place is the elemental plane of fire. Ash and volcanic rock tremble beneath the commander's feet, but walking on it seems safe enough for now. My only escape route is the distant 3-way arch of rough-hewn stone containing the 3 familiar doors. However, in order to reach it, the commander must find a way past the river of fire, in which tiny islets of pure porous stone are just barely visible. The river spews out tongues of roaring flame that land on the banks and crystallize into dark glass. As a result, both banks of the river have become steep, jagged cliffs of obsidian. Commander has nothing left to do but to walk along the bank looking for a ford, guided by his knowledge of interplanar travel. Mograine remembers a few tales of travelers who have survived the plane of fire and decides to venture forth along the fiery river's bank. The trek is long and dangerous, but after a couple of hours he finally finds what he's been looking for: a strip of hardened black glass arching across the stream of lava like a volcanic bridge. Mograine carefully makes his way to the other side, using the makeshift bridge, and climbs up to the stone arches. After reaching the stone portals, the commander has to decide which of the 3 doorways to enter. Eventually, he settles on the one with the symbol of a full moon. The commander enters a magnificent bedroom and ends up knee-deep in a seemingly bottomless pile of soft blankets, fuzzy rugs, plum feather beds, and other covers of all sorts and shapes. A swarm of succubi greet him, but that's a dream. They allure and promise the sweetest dreams if only Mograine would lie down and close his eyes. It is a dangerous temptation. Anyone who allows these fluffy killers to put them to sleep won't wake up ever again. They will crawl over their victim, piling up around them and then suffocate and smother them to death. Carving through a featherbed with his blade, the commander sees glistening flesh and thick ichor oozes from the rend in the fabric, and yet no book has ever mentioned such strange, bizarre creatures. Commander can only guess that this is the result of a strange experiment on some predatory swarm organism that disguises itself as something harmless and then preys on those it lures closer. The commander decides that the best decision would be to start a fire and escape from the room. Using the flames as a distraction, let's just burn it down. The lamp that the commander has torn from the wall explodes, and burning drops of oil ran down on the rugs. Didn't we already have blazing fire? Setting them alight in seconds, soon the entire bedroom is aflame. Rugs and blankets writhe in agony like living creatures. They crack and burst open, spewing hot blood. A sickly sweet smell of charred meat fills the room. Trapped in the terrible fire, Mograine keeps his nerve and discovers a route to safety while avoiding the scorching flames. 3 doors with different symbols lead from the master bedroom. Commander decides he would rather take his chances behind the other, the one with a boiling cauldron. The commander walks into an enormous kitchen. There are massive cauldrons with shiny polished sides, and a tiny green flame flickers within a magical oven. The aroma of delicious spices beckons from the countless cupboards and shelves that line the walls. However, as soon as the commander enters the room, the cauldron's lids fly up into the air, blown off in powerful explosions. A nasty greyish-pink slime oozes out of the open cauldron, swelling up like dough. The slime flows down onto the floor, gathering up into massive clotted clusters, which then begin to crawl toward the commander. Mograine has never seen or read about such creatures before. It is reasonable to suggest that this was the outcome of a complicated and perverted magical experiment. This carnivore slime was captured in a cave, subjected to magical transformation, and fed entirely with brain tissue. Well, decides to burn the monster in the magical oven. Mograine quickly uses the magical sigils controlling the oven to turn the small fire inside into a roaring green flame. Mograine hides behind it and lures the slime right into the open oven. The monster fails to perceive the threat of fire and crawls inside. So apparently this is a labyrinth, because we can go back. Apparently there's only one path, and we have to find the right one. The monster fails to perceive the threat of fire and crawls inside, instantly beginning to bubble and boil. In a matter of moments, all that remains of the creature is a suffocating stench that still hangs in the air. Whatever. After meticulously examining the food on the undisturbed shelves, the commander decides to rest. He takes the opportunity to recuperate and bandage his wounds. It is thinking ahead, rather than rushing forward recklessly, that separates able tacticians from those who rashly press on and perish. 2 doors lead from this kitchen, where it is apparently easier to be eaten than to eat. Commander chooses the one that is marked with the symbol of a blazing fire. Step through the door, fire reigns supreme, yes. Mobility, yes. Plane of fire, and let's go to the rod. The door doesn't budge. Commander forces it open with his weight and enters the same hall where this dangerous expedition first began. A cozy, comfortable setting, and nowhere hints at the nightmares that awaited the commander inside the mansion. The door outside is wide open, and through the doorway dark figures can be seen clutching weapons. All of this was nothing but a warm-up. The final decisive battle is still to come. Commander prepares for a fight as he steps outside the accursed mansion. The leader of this gang of demons is a grotesquely disfigured, even by standards of the abyss. A disproportionately large and bloated head rests on a tiny disformed body covered in bumps and furrows, like a shriveled walnut. What seems at first to be a mane of hair standing up on end is revealed upon closer inspection to be bone needles sticking out from his pale, blistered skin. Where the mouth should be, there is instead a bony plate formed from yellowing teeth that have grown together. It protrudes out from his torn, lacerated lips. His voice appears to come from a slobbering, undulating hole in his neck, just beneath his chin. More bloody larvae showing up at my palace? I'm getting very tired of these visits. Interesting that he says bloody larvae. Was it maybe he himself that told Stragobor to come here? What a freak. Even I feel somewhat conflicted. Would killing this creature be an act of cruelty or mercy? I do not wish to show mercy to the scum that set me up. Who are you? A snort of derision escapes from the creature's throat, and he makes a dismissive gesture with his hand, his dirty nails curling into long, thin spirals. You don't even know who you've decided to challenge? Let these words herald your imminent death, outsider. I am Willardus, the wizard confidant and advisor to the Lady in Shadow. I'm also known as the Vivisector. Oh, so he got the job from a storyteller. Greyball smirks, not bothering to hide his contempt. So many words. I'll simply call you a corpse. Less impressive sounding, perhaps, but easy to remember. Why did you put a hit out on Darazand and give Stragobor a faulty magical weapon? Who is Stragobor? Oh, that dwarf! Isn't his name... The demon hisses in frustration, a spittle flying from the hole in his neck. Nonsense! This is not Stragobor, this is Greyball! You can't confuse me, human. Why would I want that idiot dead? What possessed him to think I'm the one who put a hit out on him? And how dare you pathetic amateurs even think that a scheme of mine might possibly fail? If I truly wanted to kill Darazand, he'd be long gone. But no, I don't give a damn about anyone from the swarm of locusts. I expected such an answer. For some reason, whenever I corner these scoundrels and demand a reckoning, none of them are brave enough to own up to their crimes, and they never go quietly when I slit their throat. Why did you turn your house into a trap? I was expecting assassins, and therefore I prepared a warm welcome for such guests. I trust that you appreciate my vivarium. When I am finished with you, you'll become a new decoration for my palace, and another test for those who follow you. You will be mine. Some of you will be mindless pets, and more attractive ones I may use to meet other needs. The monstrosity giggled lecherously, and the sound is shrill and repulsive like metal against glass. Did you create the monsters I found in the mansion? The demon cackles with glee and replies scornfully, You call them monsters, silly boy? What can you possibly know about it? Those are masterpieces of vivisection, impossible creations conceived not by nature, but born of my scalpel, needle, and magic. They are crudely and clumsily constructed. Oh, she hasn't commented anything in ages. You lack creative vision and artistic talent. You may have labored over them, but they look like the work of an amateur, not a true master. How dare you! I will chop you into pieces! I cut off your insolent tongue and sew it to your... I would be interested to see how a truly talented vivisectionist could alter my form, but my body is quite valuable. I'm not going to let such high-quality material go to waste in your hands. So who do you think wants you dead? My enemies are many and dangerous, and I could spend an eternity guessing, but there's no need for that. Once I've killed you, I'll soak your warm little brains in my concoctions and read the names of my enemies like little tea leaves in their wrinkled patterns, and then I'll have a lovely dinner. There's a greedy, predatory gleam in those tiny eyes, very deep within the folds of wrinkled flesh. What do you think, Greyball? The dwarf shrugs and says thoughtfully, Usually I'm quite capable of detecting lies, but this ugly wretch is impossible to read. And why does it matter anyway? Even if he's not lying, we'll do well to get rid of him. He just tried to kill us in his mansion. Besides, will you ever sleep well, knowing this monstrosity is alive somewhere? Your words reek of deceit. The demon's cloudy eyes flare with anger, and his smart giggles give you way to a low, menacing growl. Soon we shall find out what your tiny, ridiculous, worm-eaten brain smells like. Kill him! The dwarf grins ominously, and he looks at the demon. And as he looks at the demon, there is no mercy in his eyes. I won't lie. I've been waiting for this moment. Tomorrow morning my reputation will be spotless once again. Sweet dreams, my friend. Oh, well, hello there. The projection is that of a tall female demon. That marks the end of our episode.